about the words and the actions of Apple this week with regard to revenue? And can you tell us what sort of progress you meant when you were referring to trade talks with China?
Well, I think we're doing very well. China's paying us tremendous tariffs. We're getting billions and billions of dollars of money pouring into the Treasury of the United States, which in history we've never gotten from China, as you know. It's been very unfair. I had a fantastic meeting with President Xi, who I both like and respect. One of the things that came out of that meeting was fentanyl. As you know, almost all of it comes from China. And he's going to now criminalize the making of fentanyl. And unlike our country, they have unbelievably strong prohibitions about drugs. It was not on their list. They view it as I guess, as some kind of a commercial product. Now they view it as something that's very dangerous. They're going to be changing their laws to make fentanyl a criminal process if you're making fentanyl. If they do that, you know what their ultimate is. It's called the death penalty. I think that could have a tremendous, and I thanked President Xi very much. It was the first question I said to him before we started the trade talks in Argentina. This was a meeting that was supposed to last for about 45 minutes, and it ended up being almost 4 hours. Some of you were there. It was a great meeting. We'll see what happens. You never know with a deal. But I will tell you, China is not doing well now, and it puts us in a very strong position. We are doing very well, but we're taking in billions and billions of dollars, and I hope we're going to make a deal with China. And if we don't, they're paying us tens of billions of dollars worth of tariffs. It's not the worst thing in the world, but I think we will. I think we will make a deal with China. I really think they want to. I think they sort of have to. And I think we're going to have a great relationship. I think that President Xi and myself have a great relationship. Also, North Korea. We're doing very well with North Korea. And that's based on relationship also. Yeah.
Mr. President,
go ahead. One more quickly.
Just
go ahead.
To follow up, sir. Apple issued a revenue warning this week, which led its stock to go down and the rest of the stock market to go down as well. Are you concerned about that?
No, I'm not. I mean, look, they've gone up a lot. You know, they've gone up hundreds of % since I'm president. Apple was at a number that was incredible, and they're going to be fine. Apple is a great company, but that's not my look. I have to worry about our country. Don't forget this. Apple makes their product in China. I told Tim Cook, who's a friend of mine, who I like a lot, make your product in the United States. Build those big, beautiful plants that go on for miles, it seems. Build those plants in the United States. I like that even better. Apple makes its product in China. China is the biggest beneficiary of Apple, more than us, because they build their product mostly in China. But now he's investing $350 billion because of what we did with taxes and the incentives that we created in the United States. He's going to build a campus and lots of other places. So my focus is the United States. I want to get those companies to come back, like so many are doing, into the United States. I want Apple to make their iPhones and all of the great things that they make in the United States, and that'll take place.
Thank you, Mr.
Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to ask you two questions. One, as you talk about the wall, eminent domain.
Yeah.
Many of those who own property on the southern border will lose their property because of this. And once this happens, they say that they could go to court with you for years. It could take years. Then also, what is a safety net for federal workers? You're saying months and possibly a year for this shutdown. Do you have in mind a safety net for those who need their checks, those who need SSI, those who need Medicaid, what have you?
Well, the safety net is going to be having a strong border because we're going to be safe. I'm not talking about economically, but ultimately economically. I really believe that these people, many of the people that we're talking about, many of the people you're discussing, I really believe that they agree with what we're doing. And we can have this, April, we can have this fixed very quickly. This can happen by early next week. We're going to be working over the weekend. We can have a solution to this, but I wanted to keep it all at one point. And I think a lot of the people that you're referring to, April, are really wanting that to happen too. I really believe a lot of them want to see border security, and they're willing to give it up. When I had the people in yesterday, they represent most of the Border Patrol. The people that you had yesterday that were at the news conference, they represent most of Border Patrol. Every one of them said, don't even think about us get this fixed. That is doing the great thing for our country. As far as eminent domain, you're right, 100%. Eminent domain is very interesting. But without eminent domain, you wouldn't have any highways, you wouldn't have any schools, you wouldn't have any roadways. What we're doing with eminent domain is, in many cases, we'll make a deal up front, and we've already done that. The Secretary has done a lot of that. And if we can't make a deal, we take the land and we pay them through a court process, which goes actually fairly quickly. And we're generous. But we take the land. Otherwise, you could never build anything. If you didn't use eminent domain, you wouldn't have one highway in this country. You have to use eminent domain. It's actually something you don't want to use it, but if you're going to do a stretch, as an example, on pipelines and other things that go, you have to use eminent domain. Otherwise, you'd never be able to buy the land. If we had one person that wouldn't sell us out of hundreds, just one, it only takes one, then we wouldn't be able to build proper border security because we'd have that big opening that I was talking about. So what happens is some are paid up front. You make a deal up front, and we're willing to do that in all cases. And when they're unwilling to make a deal, which also happens, then you go to court. But in the meantime, we're able to build the border security. So I think it's a fair process. I think it's a process that's very necessary, but I think it's fair.
But that couldn't that hold up your wall?
No, it's not going to hold it up because under the military version of eminent domain and under actually Homeland Security, we can do it before we even start. Now, a lot of times we'll make a deal. And I would say a good percentage of the time we're making deals. We have already purchased a lot of it. You know, a lot of the money that we've been given has already been spent on purchasing the land, the right-of-way. It's essentially a right-of-way. So we are very, very far along on that. But eminent domain is something that has to be used, usually you would say for anything that's long, like a road, like a pipeline, or like a wall or a fence. Okay, thank you. Good question. It's a good question. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So 2 questions. First, Mr. President, have you considered using emergency powers?
Should we keep this going or not, folks?
Sure.
I just don't want to say, oh, he stood out there. You know, you have so many questions. I'm just looking at Mike and Steve and Kevin. I'm saying, should we? And most importantly, Madam Secretary, I'm just, oh, are you cold? Get out of here. Here, take mine. You want mine? No, I'm just saying, should we keep this going a little bit?
Please. Yes, indeed.
Go ahead.
So, first,
let me know when you get tired.
I'm not. Have you considered using emergency powers to grant yourself authorities to build this wall without congressional approval? And second,
yes,
on Mexico, you have.
Yes, I have. And I can do it if I want.
So you don't need congressional approval to build the wall?
No, we can use them. Absolutely. We can call a national emergency because of the security of our country. Absolutely. No, we can do it. I haven't done it. I may do it. I may do it. But we can call a national emergency and build it very quickly. And it's another way of doing it. But if we can do it through a negotiated process, we're giving that a shot.
So is that a threat hanging over the Democrats?
I never threaten anybody. But I am allowed to do that, yes.
Second question.
Called a national emergency.
On Mexico, the benefits from that trade deal are going to go to private companies, private citizens. So you're talking about tax revenues.
They're going to pay tremendous tax.
So it's American taxpayers.
I'll give you an example. When a company was going to leave for Mexico, or Canada, but for Mexico, because we've lost tremendous amounts of our car business, like 25%, to Mexico. If they stay, all of those taxes that they have been paying, real estate taxes, sales taxes, employer taxes, tremendous taxes that nobody even understands they pay. They're tremendous. Income taxes, federal income taxes, state income taxes in some cases. All of those taxes stay with us. The wall is, it's great, but the USMCA, which gives a disincentive for companies to leave. It's a tremendous disincentive. Anybody that leaves after this deal is done, look, it's one of the primary reasons that I like it, because I can live pre-NAFTA too. The only thing I can't live with is NAFTA. I can live pre-NAFTA, before NAFTA, before everybody left New England and left all of the different places, Ohio, Pennsylvania. I mean, you still have empty steel factories all over the place and other factories. I can live pre-NAFTA very easily. But the only thing I'm not living with is NAFTA. That was one of the worst trade deals ever made.
So those are American taxpayer dollars, which you consider essentially Mexico paying for the wall.
Well, many, many times over. Look, the USMCA will make, in the form that we right now are losing, approximately 100, hard to believe, and this doesn't include the drugs pouring in, which is probably a much higher number than anybody would even know, in addition to destroying lives and families so horribly. We are losing close to $100 billion a year on trade with Mexico for many years. Not only that, they have a tax of 17%. We don't have a tax. So they have a value-added tax of 17%. We don't have a tax of 17%. That deal was bad the day it was made because they charged the tax before the deal was made and we didn't. It was an obsolete deal when it was made like 30 years ago, whatever it was. No, all of this stuff is changing now. This is a fair deal. This is a good deal for Mexico. Frankly, oil companies and other companies have an incentive now to go to Mexico and take oil out. And that's why we're keeping gasoline prices so low. You look at what's going on with gasoline prices. I mean, it's rather incredible. If you look back 4 months ago, oil hit $83 a barrel. 83. It was heading to 100, and then it could have gone to 125. You want to see problems? Let that happen. After I made some phone calls to OPEC and the OPEC nations, which is essentially a monopoly, all of a sudden it started coming down. I'm very happy with what's happened. And I'm very happy that people are paying a lot less in many cases than $2 a gallon for gasoline. You look at what's happening. Everyone's talking about it. Didn't happen by luck. It happened through talent